Hello, you are watching the Pure Passion Biz Podcast with Akua Hinds. You're interviewing Brandon Benzon, and he is a financial literacy expert. And we had a nice discussion earlier. I wanted to ask you, Brandon, your business helps people of all ages, but who do you aim to help the most? Which demographic are you focused on, and why do you feel they need the specific guidance that you provide?
For me, I tend to really focus more on the ages of 25 to 55 at best. Specifically, people, even in the younger spectrum, people that recently just graduated school, people that are recently embarking into their first time full time career jobs. The fact that no one necessarily will take them because of the fact that they're so fresh and new, right? Like most actual legitimate financial planners tend to go for a little bit more high net worth, right? Whether the fact that financial literacy is obviously so needed for people that make are under the seven-figure mark. They're regular 9 to 5ers that basically make a good 80 to 100% of the GTA community, right? And how they're basically left behind by Bay Street, and how I want to be able to bring the concept of Bay Street to mainstream. So 25 to 55 is what I really look forward towards, specifically people towards of working career professionals, right? That they either start fresh and brand new to their career. Maybe they're somewhere midpoint, the 30 to 40-year-old range, or people that are about to enter into the retirement as well, like people in their 50s going to their 60s, right? If I have to really look at my overall clientele, it basically fits that bill, right? How the youngest client that I have right now is about 22. The eldest that I have is about 70, right? And typically out of the top 10 that I usually serve, for me, what my top 10 account holders right now are female and single moms, right?
Okay.
And how the fact, even for the single mom themselves, right? Because like they're basically doing the burden of both mom and dad, right? They're themselves that are providing for their kids, for their family, and so forth. And how even though they like some of them depend on a single income, if their income is good enough, then I'll be able to teach them ways to be able to make that manageable, despite the fact that they're just themselves, right? And the one other criteria or other people that I tend to really help out in terms of that demographic is people of business owners, because we relate so well in terms of the concept that like I'm business minded, they're business minded, but they also lack the direction of financial education, and how like most people that I know who are typically in business, they're all gung ho about like what their numbers are, what they would need to generate and drive sales toward. But when it comes to, I remember talking to someone that had their own startup company, and just like she knew everything about financial, she knew everything about developing a pipeline, be able to have the financial aspect on the business side of things. But when it came to herself, she was absolutely clueless. And how be able to teach her basics about budgeting, how to invest, how to pull everything into one source, the pot, for investments accounts, and how to create a proper financial plan, right? And another demographic that I also really tend to follow is POC, so people of color, right? And how a good 80 to 90% of my clientele are of people of ethnic groups. So I have some Filipinos, I have some Caribbeans, I have some one person that's Ghanaian, I have some Asians, I have some people even from different religious streams. So like I have Islamic clients, right? I know how to navigate and talk properly to them in the area of finance, even though they are Islamic, because people who are of Islamic culture, they can't invest the way that you and I do, right?
Why is that?
So the key thing is that the one thing that they follow based on their overall religion is that they can't take on anything that relates to interest, specifically interest related towards debt. So anything, they can't take credit cards, they can't really actually take a mortgage as well. Based on the fact that the concept of debt, it's still something, I don't know specifics towards their religion, but it's something that they basically have there in terms of their overall belief. And how specific Islamic clients, when I basically manage their overall investments, the core factor is being able to make sure that the investments that they basically have is basically pooled into different sectors that are not related to the bank, that don't relate towards certain things that represent profanity, that don't necessarily go against the religion, that is not considered to be haram, but more halal. Haram being be able to, haram meaning blasphemy or not accepting, halal meaning accepting of something that is allowed in their overall religion, right? So halal based investments is something I have access to. So alternatively to things like green and clean type of industries, renewable energy, or something called economic, social, or ESGs, economic, social governments, investments that are socially responsible, or sectors or certain industries that are socially responsible, right?
Oh,
So
how
that's
interesting.
so yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So those are the certain niches that towards to like my personal niches in that aspect, and a little subsection towards that are people who are creatives or the entertainment industry as well. One client that I have actually has a student that they taught like tap dancing and like hip hop, and he was the TV show host for YTV. So his name is Carlos Bustamante, but his instructor was a guy by the name of Sean Byfield, right? And he's actually an extra for Grease, and he actually not for Grease, it was for Hairspray, and he basically has a photo of him and Zac Efron while he's playing as an extra.
Oh, how fun. Zac Efron's
Yeah,
great. What's
yeah.
trending right now in terms of financial literacy? Like, what are most of your clients asking you questions about?
Very basic things as well. Like, should like one recent question that I had is like, should we cancel a credit card to be able to put it condense like into one like format, right? Or other basic things is in the investment side of things that they ask a lot. Should I invest now? How's the market looking? What account should I look out towards, right? Like very general questions related towards like their own personal finances, right? Even questions in regards to like life insurance, like in the case of like if they smoke or if they casually smoke, would that affect their overall rates and so forth? A lot of those questions that come into play as well, and even more deeper questions such as leaving a legacy. So when I said that I dealt with Islamic clients, I have one Islamic family that were asking questions of creating some sort of account and some sort of plan to leave an inheritance for an orphan that they have back in Sri Lanka, actually. That this baby that they are related to their niece. Unfortunately, their parents basically that baby's parents basically passed away in a storm, and
So
they're
sad.
the ones responsible to be able to take care of her until the time that she's getting a little bit more older. So the one solution they were asking specific things like, how do we create some sort of legacy plan for her to accumulate wealth for the long term and give that to her, when the time that she's ready of age of adulthood. So the one thing that we're able to figure out is that use one of the family members TFSA room where she had a lot of contribution room for herself. We put into some sort of tax sheltered investments. We made sure that the mix of the assets wasn't tied towards anything interest related, debt related, or anything towards profanity or anything of that nature. And making sure that it was everything all at one cadence that was invested in things that are socially responsible.
Well, thanks so much for sharing about that and sharing a little bit more about how you specialize in helping your clients. What are the top three tips about saving for retirement that you give to people who are in their 20s and are not ready to retire? How do you convince young adults to think ahead for their future?
Invest early, invest often, and invest consistently. Invest early, invest often, invest consistently. A real story. I have a very good friend and mentor of mine. He's a successful tax accountant and bookkeeper. Okay, so he runs a company called First Five Bookkeeping for First Five Capital. Right. So he told me a story about how in his spare time he likes to give and volunteer his time to his community. So he works out of I think a community center that's targeted towards more older people in the Western and the Etobicoke region, and how he likes to do free bookkeeping services for those individuals. So he came across one older gentleman, and when he was assessing his taxes and so forth, the one thing that the older gentleman admitted that he didn't necessarily have enough for retirement. The man was basically working for 20 years. He had a good pension. He was surviving on CPP, but it was only enough to basically cover certain basic needs, but not enough for his rent. And how people need to understand that procrastinating a couple years or even further out just to save for retirement, let's say you just wait till you're 40 or 50, it's going to cost a lot more for you to save up for that million versus what could cost you between a couple $100 may cost you towards in the thousands or
Mhm.
close to at least 10,000. And no one got that money because like we're living the situation it is right now. If you're in your early 20s or mid 20s or still have the affordability to live with your parents, you don't necessarily have to pay rent, you have your own personal expenses, maximize what you can to invest often, early, and consistently, right?
Wonderful sage advice. And lastly, what other things are you working on right now to increase financial awareness?
I've been doubling down on creating content. I've been doubling down on actually being part of a book series very soon by Jack Canfield. So if you're familiar with Jack Canfield, he was the one that
Yes.
created the series for the Chicken Noodle Soup for Soul. This all happened by chance. Everything that I seem to come across is just it just seems to come down for the grace of God or whatever the case would be. So I remember attending a networking event the start of May. I came across this one lady that basically had her own publishing company. I shared my story, kind of sharing with you, and we booked a Zoom call just to see for a match to see if we could collaborate. So one of the cool things that she was able to offer was that she's creating this book with her business partner, and they label it "Things I Wish I Knew," where the concept of it is like you're just giving advice to your past self of things you would have done better in life, whether it's time management, fitness and health, mental. And the one thing that they didn't necessarily had is a person in the financial services aspect. So that's where I came in. So we connected, and I was able to pay my deposit to book my spot in. And I basically started writing my first draft and completing everything by soon of at least before July to get everything done so I could be part of this book. And this is the first ever written piece that I wrote in my whole entire life. The
Wow.
most I've written was like an essay from like grade 12. Like that's like years ago. Right?
Wow, that's
Uh,
exciting.
a lot of other things I'm also doing is shooting like results, like you know actually shooting like clients that have been with me for a long time, for like the past like since the beginning, or like for the past like 3 years, 5 years, and so forth, and just shooting our story together. How do we meet? What was the problem that you basically saw, like discovered in your finances? How did we come to a conclusion to fix that certain solution? And for the summer times, stay tuned to a theater near you, right? And being able to create that content of real life people that I engage with and sharing their story as well.
Sounds like you have some exciting content that's going to be released soon for your clients to benefit from, and hopefully future clients as well, and people in general who may have never thought about reaching out to a financial literacy expert like yourself, but who might do so now.
Mm-hmm.
So, congratulations on that, Brandon. And thank you so much for being a guest. So, to all of the viewers, thank you so much for watching. And Brandon's information is listed in the video description. You can reach out to him, ask him some questions, ask him about Tito Willie, and get the scoop on all of the um,
Yeah.
entertain, edutainment, infotainment, all of the
all,
fantastic.
all, all the fantastic ones, right? Yeah, and coming soon, potentially Tito Willie might get his own channel too.
Oh, that's very exciting too. So that's something to look forward to.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for helping us to understand why it's so important to stay on top of our finances, Brandon. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me, Akua.
Oh, well, you're most welcome.